So this one is Algebra 1, Semester 1. It's a unit called Graphing Linears. Linear means lines. So Graphing Linears is the third unit. It's a lesson number 1 called Slope, Positive, Negative. And it's on creatormath.com under the Algebra 1 tab. You might have to Google creatormath.weebly.com. The instructions are copy the following problems into your composition book on the correct pages according to the table of contents with the notes for those pages from creatormath.com. Before doing problems, let me show you how to find those notes. It can be difficult to find. They can be difficult to find. So if we go back, here's the address of the site, creatormath.weebly.com. Google that. If you do, hopefully you can get to this homepage. If you have any questions about the composition book, please scroll down below this on the homepage. Find the large print composition book, read all the directions, follow all the videos, watch them all, and follow all of the turn-in deadlines. Put things where they belong, and you should have a 90 to 100% on your composition book. Now we're going to go to the tab of the class for the video of which we're making, and this is where you'll find all the notes, the vocabulary practices, the PDF for that, and the problem sets, and the video lessons. Okay, 4 things are over on this tab under the name of the class you're in. So if you're not getting 100% on your video, on your vocabulary practices, I hope you understand you can download to your device a Vocabulary Algebra 1 Practice Study PDF. It's got all the words we use for the entire school year, and it is searchable. Just Google how do I search a PDF with whatever kind of device you're on, and it is different per device, so that should help you score better on those practices and understand more of the words which we are using, hopefully. So now we're going to scroll down to the semester for which this video is being made. This is the table of contents. Please make sure you have done what you should have already done, which is copy this entire table of contents onto pages 2 through 6 of your composition book. If you haven't done that already, please stop now and do that. Follow the videos back on the prior page we already discussed. Now we're going to go to the unit we're talking about, Graphing Linears, right here. Under Graphing Linears, there are multiple lessons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 lessons. So there's a lot to do with graphing linears. We are on lesson number 1. These are the pages on which you should be copying the notes, which are under this tab, for this lesson. The problem set's the one we're going to go over, and the video solution will be linked here once it's ready. So we're going to click Notes. You might have to open these a couple times like I do. It'll clear up. You should be able to expand it, right? So basic things like what is a slope? Well, here's a graph, right? There's an x and y axis, and there's a graphed line. If the line is up and to the right, it's a positive slope. If the line is up to the left, it's a negative slope. And basic understanding of what slope is. Slope is rise over run. Here's a slope of a line. Here's it's rising 1, 2, and it's running 1, 2, 3 right here. So this would be called a rise over run of 1 and 1, 2 in this case. 1, 2. Interesting. 1. Looks like it's rising 1, running 2. I would call this 1/2 right here. I would call it 2 over 3. I'm not sure I like the way I drew this. So follow these, put these in your comp book, and we'll go over some right now and do the actual calculations for them, okay? We'll show rise over run, which is delta y over delta x. And we're talking about different forms of equations of a line. The slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, and the standard form, which is ax plus bx equals c. All right? So copy those into your notes, and let's take a look at the problems now and see if we can give some guidance on these. So given the following graph, what can be said about the graph line? The line goes up to the right and has a positive slope. So basically speaking, anything going up like this, right? All those are positive. Once we start going up this way, going to be negative. And so we show that next. So given the following graph, what can be said about the graph line? If it's up to the left like this, this is a negative slope. Right? So slope in general is the steepness of the graphed line. And depending if it's up to the right, it's positive. If it's up to the left, it's negative. Right? So we can have a negative slope up to the left, positive slope up to the right. Now, students always get tripped up when they see a graph line that's horizontal. They're like, wait, this line's horizontal. What's the slope? So this line has no slope. The slope is actually 0 here. There is no slope to a horizontal line. So you got to get that one down. So even if it's slightly up like this, now it has a positive slope. Once it's horizontal, it's 0. And once it goes like this, now it's a negative slope. All right? So line has a 0 slope if it's horizontal. Then the other issue that trips up students is, what if the line is straight up and down? So we said this was 0. What would it be if it's straight up and down? This is called an infinite slope. Okay? The slope is infinite in this case, and it's because we end up dividing something by 0, which gives us an infinite result and an infinite slope. And the easiest thing to remember is any line straight up and down is an infinite slope because it's going straight up. There is no slope to it at all. It's just straight up. It's infinite. All right. What's the definition of slope? More than one answer may apply. So slope is rise over run. Check. Slope is m. You're going to have to get that down. We use m, and I always think it stands for mountain. All right. There's no real basis to that, I don't think. But if you just remember m means mountain and it has a slope, you have to walk up the mountain, then that'll help you remember what a slope is. Slope is change in y over change in x, yes. So as we have a graph line, change in y is height. Okay, so it's change in y over change in x. This is the y because it's up and down, x because it's to the right and left. We know this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. That's what that correlates to. Now, there's another thing we can do. We can use the symbol delta. Delta literally means change in. Okay, change in is literally what a delta symbol means, and it's a triangle. That's the symbol for delta, the Greek letter delta. So change in y is in words over change in x. Change in y can also be delta y over delta x, all right? Slope is y2 minus y1, so this one's right too. Slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. To find the change in y, we take y2 up here, we subtract from it y1, we take x2 over here and subtract from it x1, and we get this distance here and this distance here. Right? So change in y over change in x, or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All of these answers are correct. All of these are correct. And that's one of the things that trips up students about slope. They're like, wow, that's a lot of answers for one thing. And so it's different ways of understanding the same understanding is sort of makes it a little bit more of a dynamic concept. So given the following graph, what's the slope? So now let's do change in y over change in x. So we need to find a point here that crosses through an intersection and a point here that crosses through an intersection. Here our height is, this is y equals 1, right? So the distance here is 1 and the distance here is 1, 2. So rise over run equals rise is 1, run is 1, 2. Right? This is a slope of 1/2. So slope is rise over run, or 1 over 2, or we could also say 1/2 is 0.5. That's legal too. They don't say more than one answer may apply, so 1/2 is the slope. Remember, slope can be called m. M can be 1/2 here. M can be 0.5 here. All options that are fine for us. We just have to get used to all the different variations that are acceptable. So given the following graph, what is the slope? So now we have a problem in terms of just looking at if slope is up to the right, it's positive. If it's up to the left, it's negative. So we're definitely going to have a negative slope here. How do we calculate that? Well, let's start with 2 points. Here's a point and here's a point going through the intersections of the grid, right? Rise would be run. So if we say rise over run, rise would be 1, okay, over run. In this case, because we're going to the left, it's a negative 1, right? So positive divided by negative is a negative, 1 divided by 1 is 1. This is a slope of negative 1. So this is correct. And you could also think of this a different way. You could start here, instead of rising up and going to the left, we could go down and to the right. So we could also say it's down 1 and then over to the right 1, which is also negative 1. It doesn't matter. We should come up with the same thing. So we could do 1 over negative 1, or we could do negative 1 over 1. Both this one and this one are correct answers for the slope of this line. So, given the graph, what's the slope? Let's start at this point, and let's look at this point. This looks like an intersection here and here. It looks like we're rising 1, 2. So rise over run. Rise is 2, and run is 1. 2 over 1 or 2. Okay, so 2 over 1 or 2. It's got to be positive because it's up to the right. This is out because it's negative. This is out because it's negative. It's not a half. It's 2 over 1 in this case. All right, so that's the correct answer. Rise over run, 2 over 1. All right, given the following graph, what is the slope? More than one answer may apply. That's interesting. So it looks like it's negative. It's going up to the left. We're starting at a point here. It looks like we need these intersections here and here. We go up 1, 2, 3. So rise equals 3 over run equals 1, but it's back to the left. So negative 1. So 3 over negative 1 is a negative 3. And we could also start here and go down. That would be a rise of negative 3 and a run of 1, which equals also negative 3. So it could be 3 over negative 1, or it could be negative 3 over 1. Either one is going to generate a negative 3 slope. And remember, we could also say m equals negative 3 because m stands for slope. That is the variable that we use to explain, or the variable we assign to slope. So make sure you're matching up the title of this video with the actual problem set you're doing. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of confusing. This is Algebra 1, Semester 1. It's the third unit called Graphing Linears. And it's the first lesson called Slope, Positive, Negative, and maybe you have a practice here is kind of what you normally have on there because this is a practice set. All right? Hope it helps.